Marion County State Senator Joey Garcia joins us here at the ARP broadcast location. Morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm surprised you didn't want to reference a phone booth or something as far as how we caucus.
You and the minority Mike Woelfel, I mean, you got to get a big conference room, I'm sure, to get everybody in there. Does that make it easier or harder on you guys?
You know,
from one aspect, I guess there's positives, negatives there both.
Mike said, we had a press conference the other day, and he said we are small but nimble. And Mike is a funny guy. But I tell you what, we have come into this session, and we work really well together. And I think it's really important that there be a voice of accountability, that there be sometimes it seems like a voice of reason. And we're willing to do that. And so, I mean, that's one thing with this session so far. It's funny because it feels like the movie Jaws before, like, somebody pops up in the ocean. It's very eerily quiet right now until we see some red meat happen later in this year.
Talk a little bit about that role of a loyal opposition. Look, I've known you for a long time, probably 10, 15 years now. I'm a pretty conservative guy. We agree on some things. We disagree on a lot of things. But if there's not at least some level of loyal opposition, I mean, that's what the founders wanted. They wanted that pushback. They wanted a debate. If there is no loyal opposition, then we kind of fall into groupthink, do we not?
I think so. And not only opposition, you know what I found up here sometimes is because the Republican caucus makes a lot of their decisions in the Senate behind closed doors, you know, and they'll come out, and if it's a bill that they want, they may have a little bit of discussion or some questions, but for the most part, there's silence. And so there have been bills so far this year, and certainly last year, where I thought something deserved to be talked about. So the public knew what was going on. That's the whole idea of the Senate being the most deliberative body in the state of West Virginia. And so I think, again, that's another part of our role. And another way to put it, too, it's not like I feel like with two of us, there are a lot of people who reach out, maybe not even from my district. Obviously, Marion, Montague County, that's number one. Those are the people that I represent. But there's people that may not feel that they are represented on some of these issues. And so I kid my colleagues. I feel like I talked a lot last year on the session floor, but it's because those voices deserve to be heard, too, in the public. And so I think we will continue to do that.
Marion County Senator Joey Garcia joining us. You and Mike Woelfel had a press conference earlier this week outlining some of your priorities for the session. One of the things you talked about was Governor Morrissey's proposed 5% personal income tax that is written into the budget that he has proposed, about $125 million. You guys say, hey, we could use that and put it toward the child welfare system. Specifically, Joey, how could that money be used?
We think that an investment of approximately $30 million into both child welfare capacity building, wraparound services, and also homelessness can really do a lot to affect one of the biggest issues that we have in this state. And that is we have kids in hotels and Airbnbs, and I think the number I've heard is about 25 on an average day. There's no reason we can't get that down to zero. We have hundreds of kids that are in out-of-state facilities because we don't have the appropriate treatment or placements here in the state of West Virginia. We can build that capacity with nonprofits that currently work here in those areas, and I think part of that, you can fund capital improvements. You can also fund stability so that they know that they're going to get paid a rate that if they decide to take that on over the course of a couple years, they're going to have that foreseeability. And we have more spaces, whether those are emergency shelters, psychiatric treatment. And then finally, we've seen a lot less help from the federal government after the One Big Beautiful Bill and some other cuts that have been made there. And so I'm hearing that Section 8 vouchers, housing, we don't have as much resources for our local housing development funds. And that particularly hits children. And we know that there are a lot of children who are not in the foster care system. They may come into the foster care system when they deal with these types of risky situations, including living in their cars. So we're looking at $10 million to try to really help provide for that extra housing or even troubleshooting costs, not to be done at the state level, but to be done at the local level to help people out. We think there are manageable numbers. We can put a dent into these things if we invest, and that's more important right now than $125 million, a 5% tax cut. That's going to give maybe a couple bucks to most people in the state of West Virginia.
Talk to us about affordability. What does the Democratic caucus want to do? Because everything's up, Expenses are up. People are struggling. I'm sure you're hearing that. How do you want to combat it?
The House Democrats were kind enough to let me join them on their kitchen table tour this last year. And I got to go to about 8 of the 10 places in the state of West Virginia. And over again, we heard about utility rates. Over and over again, we heard about child care. We heard about medical bills. These are the things that people, I think, care about, and they want us to do something about. And this is, I think, one of the things we tried to emphasize the other day at our press conference is we're not coming here saying, here are our Democratic bills. We are coming here saying, these are bills we've heard from people about that we think are important, but we think everybody should think they're important, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. And the biggest issue I saw last year was one of the worst sessions I've ever seen, because it was solely focused on things that divided people. And that has been a new theme both in the state and the federal government. What we think we can do is take our time and focus on some issues that we can do something about: child care, utility rates, transparency. Those are things that will make people's lives better.
How do we address child care in West Virginia? And that's something we've heard from the chamber. We've heard from business owners that topic needs to be addressed at some level to get people into the workforce.
I think number one, foreseeability is a big thing. One thing we've heard from child care providers is making sure that the idea of attendance versus enrollment, as far as kid misses a day, they miss a payment from the state with respect to subsidies. That makes it very hard to run a business right there. That's something they want in code. So I've heard about that. Also, the subsidies at this point in time, a lot of people are priced out of being able to afford child care. That affects workforce. When we talk about wanting to bring in businesses to the state of West Virginia, we have to have the appropriate workforce. So when you have somebody balancing, is it better for me just to not work, stay home with my kids, which is absolutely their right to do, and a lot of people do that these days. But if we want to encourage people to say, you can do both of these things, we're going to support you, then it's got to be more affordable. And I think finally, having those access spots, you have to have the professionals there. And so offering incentives, including maybe somebody makes more than they can use for a subsidy. We should probably give them that subsidy anyway, because that's going to open up one person that's teaching in a child care facility, that could open up 8 or 10 slots. And versus them saying, I can't afford it, I'm going to stay home and take care of my own kids. I think those are the decisions that we have to make. And I'd like to think that, again, that's something we can do on a bipartisan level.
Talk to us about the school bailout bill. It's over in the Senate now. More deliberative process there than what happened in the House. Where are you on that? And where are you on school finance in general? I mean, it feels like we're going to have to tackle it. We can keep punting if we want to. It's not going away.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk about the school aid formula for a long time, but there are very few people in this building that understand it. And you know what? That's okay. That means what we need to do is bring in the people that do understand it, the county-based superintendents, board members, and really sit down. And what we probably should have done this year is have an open, transparent task force to figure out, how do we make this funding work? We're obviously funding the Hope Scholarship another $100-some million this year. One of the bills that we have, one of our priorities that we think we should do, Rand Corporation agrees with us, is that we should means test the Hope Scholarship. That we should, if the money, a lot of people are banking this money instead of using it in the year that they have it. That money should go back to the school system if they're not using it. And then similarly, we think it should be used for West Virginia schools, not somebody going to Ohio or Pennsylvania across the border. So, I mean, those are a few things that I think affect the funding that we have along with the school aid formula. And when it comes to Hancock, which I think was your original question, I think we need to take a hard look at what are the triggers for a situation like that to happen where we can get to it earlier. There may have been some fraud there or something. I don't know. But ultimately, the teachers and the service personnel, I do think we need to figure out how to pay their salaries and get through this. And a loan is, I think, the appropriate measure to take.
Joey Garcia is joining us, Marion County State Senator here at the ARP broadcast location. What are you working on this I was going to say semester. I don't know why I was going to say semester.
It feels like one day.
Yeah, it does.
There's a number of different priorities that I have. One of them that I think is important with our growing correction system is this idea of medical respite. We have a lot of people. So every judiciary meeting, I feel like we're raising criminal penalties. And what happens is you get older and older people in the system. The biggest line items we've had in corrections are the medical services bill. So I think there are ways to take people who've been in the prison system for a long time that are safe, who really need to be taking cancer treatments, other types of issues that we can do that safely in the public, and I think that's something that could help save some money, and I think it's also compassionate to some degree. So I mean, that's something I'm working on. I'll have a bill related to that drops today about the hospitals that are under the Department of Health Facilities. My hospital in Fairmont, John Manchin, last year we had the governor selling that along with 3 other facilities. I didn't think that was the right thing to do without it coming before the legislature. There are a lot of issues that came up with that. And so I've got a bill to try to remedy that for the future for the 3 remaining ones that we have.
Would it make it crystal clear that he has to have legislative approval before he makes any other additional sales?
Crystal clear, yes.
Didn't the legislature give the governor the authority to sell those hospitals?
I don't believe so. A judge said that it was broad. And unfortunately, we didn't have time to take that to the Supreme Court before the sale went through. But and that's one area where I had to take my lawmaker hat off and put my lawyer hat on for a little while, because I represented a wonderful woman whose 90-some-year-old mother has been in John Manchin forever. And we did the best we could. I didn't think it was the right outcome, but that's now I can put my legislator hat back on and talk about, again, the process. I think the process is important.
He's Joey Garcia, Marion County State Senator. Appreciate